Hi, horse friends. In today's video, we are going to talk about two different irrigation methods for growing grass hay as well as alfalfa hay. We're going to particularly talk about overhead irrigation systems as well as flood irrigation. And they both have their advantages and disadvantages. So the first thing we're going to talk about is how we flood irrigate with a ditch. So this is one of our main irrigation ditches here on our property. We get the water based on a rotation. It actually comes all the way from the mountains over there and comes down here and then feeds into this ditch. Now, along this ditch here, we have some piping that goes into our fields over there, as well as some down here. Now, to be able to get the water to come out at a decent enough volume, we put some boards in. If you see right here, we have some boards, and this is one of our big gates here. And we will start putting the boards in when it's our time and stacking them up to get the water to raise up high enough that it goes into our culverts and floods our field. Now, the problem with this is that we do actually need a decent amount of water to make this happen. We do also need a decent amount of water pressure to come through. So that's why we stick the boards in to try to get the flow to kind of, build this pressure up to make it go through the culverts. One of the reasons that we like this type of irrigation for Timothy grass hay in particular is it waters the root of the plant really well. The root of the plant in Timothy grass is quite dense. So above irrigation actually takes quite a bit of water to get all the way down to the base. Because of the way the bush is at the bottom, there's another term for it, and I forget it right now, I'm sorry. It takes quite a bit of overhead water to go down to the bottom. Now, another disadvantage of flood irrigation is our ditch maintenance here. As you can see, we have a ton of willows there. That will create an issue for us in the winter time, as well as it reduces our pressure and slows down the water passing through it in the summertime. So this is something we're going to have to get into our backhoe here and deal with. Now, as far as above ground irrigation goes, those have the great advantage of the field doesn't have to be as level, okay, when those big arms are going through. It evenly distributes across the whole field. Now, of course, there's another issue with those, and that is maintenance, right? Anything that is mechanically driven requires more maintenance. It also costs more money to run because you've got your power, you've got diesel, you've got all these things to maintain those and keep them going. There is also a much larger upstart cost because you generally have to have a well as well that is designated to be an agriculture well to run those. And those are very expensive. So you have the expense of the overhead irrigation, you have the expense of the well, and the expense of maintaining them. So for most farmers that, are people like me, we really can't afford that as an option anyway. But it does really help with fields that are a little bit more on level. Like if you look at ours, you'll see kind of some high spots, some low spots. We do go through and try to laser level that as best we can, but nature has different ideas sometimes. So those are the advantages and disadvantages between flood irrigating and overhead irrigation for both for Timothy grass, orchard grass, as well as alfalfa fields. So let us know your thoughts in the comments, and thank you so much for joining us.